Welcome. I'm gonna share my screen so we can jump right in because we got a lot to cover, and I think we should be ready to roll here. All right. So, hopefully everybody can see my screen. So we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about. I'm Darren Port, the CEO and founder of Powered by Professionals. We're a fundraising and event management firm. It was started back in 2002, 20 years ago. We've had the privilege of working with exclusively with nonprofit organizations. And today we're going to talk about referring to the old while navigating the new. And really what that is implementing past fundraising techniques with new approaches. And I'm going to go through some proprietary processes that we use that I think would be great for you and your teams at your nonprofits to increase your fundraising while also figuring out how to kind of navigate this new environment we're in. The secret of change is to focus on all your energy, not on fighting the old, but on building the new. There's a quote of the day for you to start you off. So who we are really quick, Powered by Professionals. We've helped organizations raise close to $200 million over our 20 years. We've worked with about 100 different nonprofits. We focus on 3 key areas of fundraising, event management, technology. And on the fundraising side, a lot of it is event fundraising. There's also strategic fundraising and board development. On the event side, it's everything from venue identification through scripting and all different types of events, from galas to run walks to concerts, runway shows, golf outings. And then on the technology side, it's helping you figure out which technologies to implement with your organization. If it's CRM solutions, fundraising tools, auction technology, virtual technology, we help with all of that. So, and we've helped launch 14 organizations from scratch. So we're used to working with small organizations as well as larger organizations that use us as like an outsourced team. All right. One thing that we've been doing for a very long time and something I'm really passionate about is having a plan in place when you're planning your overall fundraising strategy. And for this example, we're going to do it surrounding an event. So one thing that I strongly recommend and that we do with all of our clients is we create an organizational chart. And before I go into what an organizational chart is and how it works, today what we're going to do is I'm going to walk you through this chart and how to effectively use it to effectively grow your fundraising. And then we're going to show you some of the different ways that people are handling virtual, hybrid, and live events, and what are ways to kind of bring them all together. So let's just jump right in. So this is an organizational chart. We create one of these for every fundraising event we work on, with every organization that we're working with. And what we do is these would be the honorees. So these, you could have 3 honorees, you could have 2 honorees, you could have 1 honoree, you could have more than this. But say these are the 3 main categories that I recommend when creating a fundraising event. The first one is this first one under credibility, influence, leader. This is someone who brings credibility to your mission, who's connected to your mission, and who overall is tied to what you're all about. And that could be in medical field, it's a top doctor in the field. If it's someone in politics, it might be a leader who's making a change in the city due to education or something like that. It could be a very influential if it's tied to a school. Someone who's making an impact in your field and makes you look good, backs up your mission. The second box is the money box, I like to say. It's either a philanthropist, could be an executive at a company, could be a family that's very well connected. We have some great examples of people that have filled these roles. It doesn't have to be necessarily a very wealthy person, someone who can help you raise a lot of money. That's really the key here. And ideally, it's someone who has connected back to your cause in some way, shape, or form. They may be connected to a board member who's very influential. They may be connected because your mission aligns with what they do, or they may be a big philanthropist, so they really just make a huge impact on many causes. And then you have the wow factor. This last box is the wow factor. Do you want your event to be fun, exciting? By having a celebrity involved, will that add a lot of exposure for your organization. So that's something to consider. Again, not critical, but fun in some capacity. The next piece is finding people to support those award recipients. So again, I'm not going to tell you anything that you don't really know. It's just how do you execute on this and how do you get the right people involved? So to ask a whole bunch of random people to be co-chairs of an event is not going to work. It might work, but it's not very well thought out. So let's think about it strategically. If it's a senior doctor that you're working with, there may be a patient or caregiver that doctor can involve that you don't know. So it's a new person to get involved who can play a role and wants to play a role because that person is being honored. So it's tied in that way. It could be a key vendor or business partner to the organization. It could be a key vendor or business partner to the executive that you're honoring. It could be a board member. Sometimes board members need to be kind of put into that role where they feel like they're being elevated and they're being asked to step up. You want to make sure you have very clear criteria for each of these roles, and you want to talk them through what that looks like. What's the financial give-get? What is the responsibility of a mailing list? Who do they know? Who can they bring involved? And then the last thing, could be a friend of an honoree. It could be one of the honoree's close friends who's in a completely different industry, who has no connection to your cause, but has respect for the honoree. So that's another very critical piece. These are all different ideas. I'm happy to talk to any of you about this in more depth, but critical to the success of an event is putting the right people in these roles. Then one thing that I like to say is that there are people that are involved with the organization that have been involved for years, but they're not, but you know, you don't know where to put them, but they're very important because they've kind of done all the roles. They've either been honored or they've been a co-chair of the event. So you want to put these people in an honorary chair role. So they feel like they have, they feel like they're part of the event. And it's important that they look like they're part of the event. It might be it might mean their name means something to people that are involved. Again, they might be a former honoree or a chair. Another thing to think about with all the people that we've kind of covered so far is to see if they might be part of a company with a large matching gift program. This is something to have in the back of your mind, not a front center thing, but something to keep thinking about, because if they have a great matching program, that might be a way to really get their company involved and people within their company to participate, which would generate a lot of money. One thing we do is we like to have former award recipients present awards to these like lower level awards. So you have these senior awards here. You have the credibility, you have the wow or the money factor, and then you have the wow factor. And then here are like the people who are really making the difference. It might be a teacher, it might be a patient who's battling brain cancer and you're working with a brain cancer organization. It could be someone who leads your programs, who really needs to be recognized for what they do. So these are people who are really what the story is about, right? So sometimes one of those people who received the awards in the past would present it to this year's people, especially if it's a medical situation. It's great that they're doing well, they're healthy, or they're surviving, and they're presenting to this year's recipients, which makes those people feel good that this person's back. Another thing to do or consider is to tie in a nurse or a teacher through what's called the Compassionate Care Award. Again, you don't have to do all these things. This is just a bunch of different ideas that we use when we create a chart. And the nurse or teacher, they may be able to connect you to patients, let's say the nurse. The teacher may be able to connect you to families that they work with. And those families may have students that should be recognized. So these are just giving you different scenarios. The other thing that is important is who's going to be running the program, who's going to run the evening. So we had an event last night. We were at the Harvard Club in Boston. So I'm up here in Boston today speaking with you. And we had a woman from television, Kimberly Bookman. She is fantastic. She controlled the room. She's so professional. These newscasters who are on TV, radio, they really know how to manage that situation. They're not overwhelmed by it. They do their homework in advance. They've read the script. they've prepared, and that makes your event run so much smoother and more organized and more professional. It makes your organization look more buttoned up. So something to really strongly consider is figuring out how to get a TV or radio personality involved, because it makes you look good as an organization. All right. Next piece is either a special guest or an auctioneer influencer. Some people will have a live appeal at their event, and by having a live appeal, you sometimes have a professional auctioneer, like someone from a Sotheby's, or maybe it's somebody who does this professionally. There are other companies that do this. I did it last night. Not the best choice, but it got the job done. We raised about $50,000 during our appeal, and so that was a great situation. So the other thing to consider is a committee. You have to put a committee together, and that committee can be made up of former award recipients, donors, longtime supporters, team captains, and anyone who's really involved. It gives them a role, but without making them feel overwhelmed, where some of the honorees or chairs may feel overwhelmed with their responsibilities. This is a chance for you to involve people that you want to make sure they do something, but you know that this year they can't do it all. But we should keep them involved, and we know they can bring value. Maybe it's helping you get auction items. Maybe it is helping you, get new people involved with the committee, selling tickets to your event. It could be I always like for run walks, which is another, we still use this model for a run walk, but like a team captain, that's someone that you think wants to have a little bit more of a role, or they want to feel more involved or connected to the cause. This is a great way to get them involved. And what we'll do is we'll have host committee calls with these people. And while having these phone calls, we will we'll support them in different ways. And they'll also each share different things that they're doing that others can kind of learn from. So and we'll get on to how these committees have kind of grown recently with COVID and how Zoom and on some of these other tools are enabling committees to become more powerful. And the last thing, or not second to last thing, is you want to list out your board and your advisory board. Again, this is an internal document, so you're really not sharing this with too many people. You may share with an honoree just so they don't feel overwhelmed. What I really like to do is I get an honoree to commit, and they're like, they're already a little like nervous. They're like, well, what am I going to have to do? How many people are involved? And I want them to see this and be like, oh, wow, there's like 30 people involved in this event that all are doing similar things that I'm doing. And if we all do our part, what an amazing evening or day or just event we're going to have. So I like to list the board, advisory board. That might have people's names that they're more familiar with. And it also reminds you that you need to reach out to all of those people to make sure that they're doing their part in making the event successful. And the last thing is we don't really list them out here, but we just list this as a reminder that we need to get our individual donors, our corporate donors. We got to make sure that our materials are out in time. In-kind partners, we want to make sure they're followed up with and kept intact. And we want to leverage the fact that all the different people that are on this chart are working to help us fill those needs. The individual, the corporate, the in-kind, and the ticket sales. And what's nice is that each of them will be good at something else, right? So together, what we're doing is we're trying to, create a picture through a puzzle. And if we can put all the right pieces in place and fill these boxes with the right people, it's incredible what can happen with an event. Let me give you an example from a recent event we've had. So, whoops, I'm gonna go back to the screen. So this is an event for an organization that has 0 staff. So this organization has a founder, and it's been around for, I think, 7 years, the organization, 8 years. They've been working with us for about 4. This is an event we took over 3 or 4 years ago. We've grown it from what was a small event to now it's about a $400,000 event. Just so you can really quickly see how it works. This is a top neuro-oncologist here in New York City at Sloan Kettering, who got our Nobility in Science Award. This gentleman, Mike Towers, is an executive at Takeda, a pharmaceutical company, and he is the chief of security. And we were able to approach him and explain to him the impact he could have by lending his name. He didn't realize what he could do. And we talked to him about identifying his vendors and partners and friends. And we worked with him to do that and then made it easy for him. We'll talk about that in a little while too. So how do you make it easy for your vendors, for your honorees to participate? One thing Mike said to me right from the beginning was, I don't have any time. I said, that's okay. We don't need a lot of your time. I said, I need about an hour of your time leading up to the event. He's like, that's it? I said, that's it. So it's just then breaking it down for him of what that hour was going to be made up of and making sure we're utilizing him effectively. He was not able to get us a co-chair, so we had to get creative. We were able to get co-chairs through the founder. We were able to get a co-chair through Dr. Mellinghoff, who recommended a family that he was connected to that had a direct connection to the cause. And then we had a former award recipient and her husband participate. And then we had the honorary chairs, who are 3 very influential people in the organization who've been involved and have longtime survivors. And then we have here, one of them presented the awards, and then we had actual patients, and this was a nurse that was awarded. So you get an idea. Heather Thompson, former housewife of New York. So she has experience on TV, comfortable on the mic. Not a newscaster, so we didn't go that route, but she's very comfortable, well polished, and brings a lot of energy, super energy. And then we had a professional auctioneer who does this on TV. So, and then you have your committee, your board, and your donors, like I mentioned. So it gives you an idea. Here's another one for a run walk. So we do use this model in a run walk. And you kind of get an idea here. There was kind of like 4 main award recipients with the Courage Awards, and then there was a TV personality who was our MC, and then we upgraded one of the team captains to be a run walk chair. This is a young lady in her 20s, but by making her have a bigger role, she was excited and wanted to do more, and we gave her instructions on what to do and helped her do it, and she was able to raise $15,000 for the cause. So it's just like finding someone who you think wants to take on a larger role, or if put in a role, can make an impact. This guy Brian was able to involve major companies because of his position and what he does. So it's just finding the right people to put in the right boxes. But every event we do looks like this. So if you have any questions on any of that, please ask them through the chat or through the question area. And again, this will be shared with everybody, so you'll have a chance to use this. And again, you can always call me. I'm happy to do a 15 or 30-minute call with you to kind of walk through things and explain how we do it. So implementing old techniques and customizing your solicitation. This goes back to that example I was saying with that guy, Mike, when he was being honored. He was like, I don't have the time. Can you make this easy for me? What is that going to look like? So I said, well, we need a personalized message from him. We need to get a list from him of people that he can reach out to, that he's connected to. He doesn't know who to reach out to. You have to tell him. So in this case, I was like, are there vendors that your company works with that you help, that help you do your job effectively? He's like, yes, there are. I was like, great. Can you make that list? Can you make a list of other key friends, either within the company or outside the company, and send us their name, their company, and that's all you have to send us, their name and their company. If you could send their email, great. If not, it's okay. And what we did was then we sent him a letter and an email. We drafted it pretty much anticipating what he'd want to say. He looked at it for 5-10 minutes, made minor edits, sent it back to us. We then created 37 packages for him, 37 emails, including packages attached, and we emailed it to him. So all he had to do was hit forward and send them directly to these people. So the message came from him to them. So who's sending the message is so critical in this day of being swarmed with too much information that we all don't have time for. So he was able to raise $150,000 because of the strategy we took and because of the position he's in to be effective. He wasn't going to do anything for this event, but we identified him from the board. We then explained to him how he could help, And then we made it easy by breaking it down into bite-sized pieces that he could manage and only take about an hour of his time. And he copied me on every email so that myself or someone on my team could follow up with everyone on that list so that he didn't have to worry about that after he sent the first email. So just learn. Some volunteers may not have email address. Like, I want it mailed. I want to do calls. I want you to follow up on my behalf. I don't want you to follow up on my behalf. I want my assistant to call. I want a relative to make a phone call. So whatever it may be, you have to figure out that, and then what and how are they going to best respond to that outreach. So this is really important stuff. So we looked at some studies online, and we saw that that one cause had a great study that came out. It was just like talking about with virtual, hybrid, live, like what's happening, what are people thinking, and there were a couple of things on here that I thought were interesting. It's saying virtual events aren't ideal, but are a good substitute when in-person events are not possible. So 47% strongly agree with that. And I think we probably all somewhat agree with that, right? 88% somewhat agree with that. The question just becomes, from virtual events, what are we losing? What are we gaining, right? So that's what I think we're going to talk about for the rest of this this session is our virtual events helping, hurting, and how do you best leverage them? For some organizations, virtual events are incredibly impactful, and I'll let you guys look through this at your own time. I think most people agree with what they're seeing here. The other stat I saw is, I'm tired of doing things virtually, and a lot of people are tired of doing it virtually. So you have to keep that in mind. Even if you think it works, and it makes life easier, you have to decide if that is really what your audience wants, or is that helping you with your overall long-term strategy. One thing I get concerned with is that people will, you lose touch with your donors. You're not really connecting with them. Last night, again, I was at this event. I hadn't seen these people in 3 years. It was so great to reconnect. We had lost momentum. We had our best event 3 years ago. So we were kind of building it back again. And it's just this, listen, we still raised money when it was virtual, but it wasn't the same. So something to think about. So we talked about it. You can lose touch with your donors, which is challenging. Donors can lose the responsibility to feel involved. I think that's, to me, one of the biggest things. If you're not meeting with and seeing others that are as passionate as you are for the cause, you can lose that passion and energy, and you can lose some of that momentum you have. And volunteers feed off other volunteers. They see what others do, and they either motivates them, or they're probably not volunteering in the first place. It's not sustainable long term, this whole virtual concept. I shouldn't say it. For most organizations, it's not sustainable long term. There might be a component of your event that leverages virtual, or there are some organizations that may be spread out, and this became the best way for them to have an event to include everybody, because they're so splintered around. There's not in one location where they could have a live event that's really effective. Please people get lazy. Listen, you're at home, you don't feel like reaching out. You feel weird. Those people feel weird reaching out to their friends because they haven't seen them in a while. So to ask them virtually for help sometimes doesn't always work. But there are ways to do both of these things. Vendor costs have gone up, so it becomes expensive to do these live events. You have to start weighing. You could do the virtual event and the live event. If you're netting the same amount of money, which one do you want to do? Clearly, the virtual event can be less work, but you may not. But over time, you might put yourself in a dangerous position as an organization. So I just caution you to be careful with that, because we've seen that you start to lose the connection with the people. So now we talk about organizations that are spread out and the chance to include people that were unable to participate. So for those of you in New York, I guess a lot of people may be in New York based because of Cerini as a New York organization, company. And Westchester, I know, is a bunch of participants today. So, you know how much it is to have these events. You know how much these venues charge, and the cost of these tickets and so on. So the chance to include people who really you want to include in your event, but you realize you can't because they can't afford it. And if you include them, it's costing you money. This is a new way to do it, to have that virtual component so they feel involved. You just have to figure out how to do it in a way that involves them and allows them to be excited about being part of a virtual event. And maybe there's a tie-in to the live event. We'll talk about that in 1 minute. And this is also a way for other people to see what's being said at your event, maybe to hear the speakers that they've been dying to hear, and have an abbreviated version for them to participate. Another thing that's really interesting with virtual that adds a lot of value is this content that you're creating. By having these virtual events, you're creating content that can be reused, repurposed for post-event use, year-round marketing. You can take speeches, sound bites. We had a run walk in Chicago. I guess it was 2 years ago, it might have been 2 years ago. Actually, it was last year. We did 2 versions. We had a virtual version and a live version. And one woman gave such an incredible speech. And her speech was for the virtual portion. We pre-recorded. She then gave a brief talk on stage at the event. And we used a portion of that during to do an email blast out to people to get people excited. She talked about her passion as a nurse and the impact she was having with so many organizations, with so many patients and families on their diagnosis and their journey. And then other times it's able to highlight someone that you want to highlight from within the organization to add value again, bring credibility, which we'll talk about now, is celebrities, right? Celebrities have been more open to participating in events now that we started this whole virtual thing 2 years ago. And what they've done is they've been like, listen, I can't come to your event, but I'm happy to record something. And all these 3 people here, Wendy Williams was connected to the cause. She has a lymphedema, and we work with the Lymphatic Education and Research Network. And we were doing this big virtual global event. And she was like, okay, and we talked to her marketing people, and we found out a way to get them excited about it as well. So they were marketing it right on her show. She was talking about our event. And then she did a pre-recorded message as well. It was very impactful. We were able to use it on social media all the time, get her fans excited. Buddy from the Cake Boss, he's a character. He emceed the event. He was a little bit all over the place as an MC, but we actually might have him in a live because he was so fun. He brings so much energy. Almost want him at a live event. Alec Baldwin, this is about 1.5 years ago. He had been involved with the organization, years ago, like 10 years ago. And we reached out to him and said, is it possible to record something? He was willing to do that, at no cost, and really powerful in the message he gave. Stephen Page was able to provide entertainment during a virtual event we did for the, I think it was the National Criminal Defense Lawyers Association. So it's just a great way to incorporate them, to bring credibility and value to your organization, and something and a picture you could probably highlight in some of the marketing you do post-event. A couple other things. So this is an example. We did an event recently live, well, hybrid, I should say. So it had a virtual event going on. This event was in New York City at a venue called Gustavino's on 59th Street, under the 59th Street Bridge, actually. Gorgeous space. So the virtual event was going on separate from the live event. And then when we got to the portion of the evening where we asked for some money, we were able to incorporate the virtual crowd and the live crowd. We also had a magician or an illusionist, if you will, as well on this virtual. So he wasn't at the event. He was virtually, dealing with the virtual crowd. And then we brought him live into the event on the screens, and everyone in the room followed along with this game he wanted everyone to play. So it was very powerful. And it was pretty amazing that this guy was participating with us from afar, and the people on the phone, everyone had to get their calculators out of this whole thing. And it was really mind-boggling. People were blown away by it. So it's just a cool way to incorporate entertainment, technology, and bring it all together, because there were people that were not comfortable attending. So they had enough people that it made sense. You got to figure out what that model is. They also had a lot of, this is an organization called Scope that helps kids go to sleepaway camp, get an opportunity to go to sleepaway camp who would never get this chance otherwise. And a lot of their people that they work with couldn't afford to attend. So this was such a great opportunity, or they're actually spread out around the country. So this was great for them to be able to log into the virtual component and also see people in the room. And we had them on the screens, and we had pictures of people in the room on the screen. So it was kind of nice, and they had a lot of fun with it. A couple other things that we want to talk about tied to the event is check-in. So there are easier ways, like let's talk about technology a little bit. There are new platforms that we're using, and many of you probably do this already. But let's leverage these technologies more effectively. There's contactless check-in, there's these QR codes, and it's pretty amazing. What's also really important, and I don't want to forget to bring this up, is the importance of getting people's phone numbers, their cell phones. And a lot of times to participate in the event, you need their cell. And by doing that, you can start to develop a database of all these mobile phones. And you know, and I know that we're looking at our mobile phones more quickly than we're checking our email. So if someone sends you a text, you're responding to it more quickly than you're looking at your emails to respond. And it's less cluttered so far, at least as of right now. So getting access to be able to send them a quick message on their phone, so that's their ticket to the event. They have to use that. At least it allows you to build your database. So that's pretty important. And it also is very cool that you can do that, and people can just pull it up real quick on their phone, their ticket, and it makes the check-in a lot faster, especially when people don't want to be waiting online and so on. All right. We talked about this very briefly before, but committee calls. We found that we're getting a lot more participation with committees. You know, people are definitely getting lazy, right? So people don't want to come to meetings. To get people together in the city or at your location, wherever it may be, to participate in a committee call is going to be very challenging. So, so doing Zoom committee calls is the new thing. You know, it's not going anywhere. So, you know, figuring out how to maximize those calls, figuring out how to give people roles within the calls so they know what they're going to talk about, having clear agendas, but then really calling 5 or 6 of the people that are going to be on and saying, here, I want you to talk about this. So it makes it more interactive. It makes the other people more comfortable that there is still participation, even though we're virtual right now, we're still participating, and I can use my voice if I have a question or a comment or a suggestion. So these are pretty powerful things. And you should invite other new people. The only challenge is inviting too many people, and then you have a couple of rogue people mess up your meeting. So just make sure you have control of muting people if they get a little too much, or separate calls with people to let them know, listen, I'd like to invite you to the meeting, but I want you to listen the first time to see how these meetings run, and you know, kind of control your meeting. QR codes have been incredibly powerful, and what we're seeing with that is it provides organizations for guests to contribute to the event. So like last night, everyone got a seat. You know, what table you're at. Here's your table number, and on the table number card we handed each person was a QR code. So they could not avoid, if they needed to make a donation or if they wanted to check the auction, they can easily just use the QR code and participate in the night's event. Plus, we took their cell phone number when they checked in, and we sent them a message as well. We had QR codes on the tables. We had QR codes in letters that went out, as you see here. This letter is an example, one way to make it easy. So people are like, well, we don't want to do snail mail anymore. I was like, well, you know what? Snail mail is not a terrible thing, and it still works. And having an opportunity to get a letter, personalized letter, that in this case, Christy wrote to her father's friend, and he's battling a tumor. She was able to write a handwritten note on each of these letters that she sent out, and there's a QR code. So if someone wants to respond quickly, they could just jump right online and make a donation. And in this case, we were driving them directly to her team page, because she had set up a team page. So it wasn't even to the main site; it was right to her site where she's fundraising for her family. And then donating by phone. Again, this is a message we did electronically that went out to everybody. Actually, this was a slide that was on a screen during a virtual event that we had. It's another way to do it, but there's just a lot of different ways to incorporate it. Navigating peer-to-peer events and new approaches at these peer-to-peer events. People do like to be at these live events outside. It's just, you get the COVID issues kind of a little bit out and off the table. It's a great, people just love to get together and get out and do things. So we've seen the numbers kind of increase on the outdoor events, which is really exciting, where the indoor events have been struggling a little bit, trying to get back to the same amount of people. We do encourage leveraging cell phone digital cameras, take pictures, encourage the people participating to do that. There's opportunities to post, them to post, to then send to us, so that we did a recap. So we have like a highlight reel that we sent out of short videos, pictures, speeches of the event. And it's such a great reminder of that day. For those who couldn't make it, they get to get a feel of what it was like. Maybe I got to go next year. Look at the excitement at the event. You can really pump it up, almost like it's a promotional video. And it's not that hard to do. You can, if you can't, work with a team like us, or you can probably even figure it out. There's a lot you can do on your phone, and there's some certain technology you can use that you can put it all together. Offering virtual registration options. So say you're doing an event, but people want to participate, but they can't be there. If they can do their own walk or their own run or their own whatever event you're doing, they can play golf on their own course and still participate. So that's important. And they can do their own fundraising too, so they don't have to be at your event to do it. Share your event on social media. Like we said, here's a great picture from an event, and we're celebrating those people, and we can put this out throughout the year, talking about the different people that have been involved. There's we've done short videos, like I mentioned. We actually, after one of the events, we sent out a speech from the main honoree, who gave an incredible speech that day. It was so inspirational. So we did that. And then we also, as you see here, we're thanking our top sponsor on the bottom here. So that's giving them extra credit, extra exposure. So great way to keep your sponsors happy. You could have RSVP cards that have QR codes, so people can easily respond about their attendance. We did a virtual raffle and sweepstakes. You can do that at a live event where you show it spinning on the screens, or you can do it on a virtual event. We picked the winners. It was a lot of fun, an event we did it at. And then the virtual photo booth can be used both in person and at virtual for virtual guests. And this can be shared so that everyone can kind of feel a part of the same thing. We've definitely, it's been a wild ride this last few years. So I will, say that, we went through a lot, but I think what's really important to emphasize is that you have to stay positive. And, I heard Ken earlier when he was talking about, we're going through a tough, challenging time, but don't bring that to your donors. Listen, people have money, people can give, people need to feel important, and people want to feel connected. Make them feel connected to your organization. Focus on the positive things, and leverage these tools that make the most sense for your organization. You know better than us, and your colleagues, which tools are most effective for your organization. And keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate things. Keep building relationships, and thank everyone as much as you can. This is a little bit about us. Again, that's my information. Feel free to check out our website, see some examples of some of the work that we do. We're based in New York, but again, we work around the country, and I'm happy to answer further questions. I see a lot of chats, but like I said, you can send me an email and I'll send you my calendar, and you can just jump on my calendar and schedule 15 minutes. We can just chat quickly about your organization. If I can answer any questions, it'd be my pleasure. I want to wish everyone a great summer, give you a few minutes back in your day, and thank you so much for being a part of today's session. Good luck to all of you.